Those are some of the non-infrastructure strategies. I will mention that there is a Cape May County local road safety plan that is being developed in parallel to this plan. The data is using similar data. Some of the stakeholders are common to both plans. Some of the non-infrastructure strategies are also common to both plans, but the Cape May County plan is all of Cape May County, not just Cape Island. The emphasis areas are slightly different, I think, but they're very similar. Our next steps if this plan is approved, US DOT requires that it be posted publicly, and then we can move forward with implementation. So our action is on the screen. You know what the action is. So that is our presentation. Thank you.
I do have a question. I'm not sure if I should address this, maybe perhaps to you, Mike, but, you know, we have worked with the tour operators on LSVs and education and materials, myself and Chief Fashall, for the last 2 years. So I was hoping that there might be a bit more of a formal incorporation into, you know, the issue of LSVs on the island, because we have seen certainly an uptick, and I don't think you would see that in the data. Because it was, you know, only through 2021, but we've seen a lot, an increase in activity and certainly driving behavior and education. So not to derail the plan and getting buy-in and sign-off for this evening, but I do think it's something that we would like to see incorporated into the education component moving forward. We've done our work that we can, but it really needs to be a little bit more hardwired into it. So
if I could just add, that's why it was mentioned in there. So a lot of this plan was to set up activities and projects to get grant funding for. So if we wanted to expand that LSV educational component, because it's mentioned in this plan, we can develop a program for
okay, that would be great. I would very much like to see that. So.
And I have a quick question. Since the data shows only to 2021, all the grants and additional monies that you would be, or we would be applying for, does that create a problem? Okay, because typically you would want to see data, you know, up to date.
It should not. This meets all the criteria as a qualifying action plan. Yeah.
Okay, and how often does the data come out from the state?
It gets updated every year. There's a delay. As you can see, there's a lag in time from when it's almost a 2-year lag in data. We'd love to see it come out a lot sooner.
So they would be adding 2022 at some point. It's sort of a rolling addition?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions or?
So our next step, obviously, if council approves this and we move forward, we would then possibly work with GPI in this establishing and looking, you know, picking 2 or 3 projects that we might want to pick out of this plan to be our first steps to apply for grant money for 2025. Because the cycle, you know, they usually, you know, the timing is springtime for their grant cycles?
Yeah, we expect it probably in March. They may come out with another notice of funding opportunity. Yeah.
So that's what we'd want to do is probably continue to work with the Bike and Pedestrian Committee and work on, okay, now that we've got this, which of the 2 or 3 that we want to maybe focus on to apply for next year?
Perfect.
Good.
Anything else, council? Thank you very much. We really appreciate it. And I do want to commend our liaison, Councilman Mike Yeager, and all the folks who worked on this, on the bicycle and pedestrian. I know they put a lot of work into it. So also West Cape May and Cape May Point and Lower Township, we thank you for their partnership. So
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
And council, if you are inclined, we do have Resolution 307-11-2024, resolution approving the Cape Island Safe Streets and Roads Program Action Plan.
Okay. Okay, do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any questions or comments, council? Roll call?
Councilmember Yeager?
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer?
Yes.
Councilmember McDade?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Baldwin?
Yes.
Mayor Mullick?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, on to ordinances for second reading and consideration for adoption. This is ordinance 546-2024, an ordinance amending 434 of the Cape May City Code to establish limits on city recycling collection and require private collection for amounts exceeding those limits. And there is a public hearing tonight, Mayor.
Is anyone here wishing to speak on ordinance 546? Please come to the microphone and state your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Tony Montefusco, and I'm from Cape May Courthouse, but I work here in Cape May. I want to thank you for this opportunity for allowing us to voice some concerns, and the opportunity that you allow us to do that is very commendable, so thank you. So I am here on behalf of Cape Resorts, and I manage the dozen properties that we have here in Cape May. This recycling ordinance will put a lot of difficulties on not only our business, but other businesses as well. It's already reducing the limited services we receive from the city of Cape May. Cape Resorts consider significantly to the city's revenue directly with property taxes, mercantile fees, concession agreements, and indirectly with the visitors that we bring to our town. I know our properties pay nearly $700,000 in property taxes and fees to the cities for services. It is unfair and unreasonable to deprive our business of a service when contributing so much to Cape May. Other than police, fire, EMS, recycling pickup is the only service that our properties get without additional charges. We support the city implementing recycling standards that make the workloads feasible for the public works team. However, we do not believe that this proposal limit on recycling is fair based on our contributions and a few other businesses who rely on the city pickups at the recycling at the curb. Please know that we make every effort for our visitors to have the best experience here in Cape May. The ordinance will result in additional charges to our properties that could result in us passing that on to our guests. In addition, this ordinance would have additional vehicles on our already busy and crowded streets. I hope that you can help Cape May green initiatives moving forward and rejecting this ordinance, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Is anyone else here wishing to speak on this ordinance? Dennis, you want to go ahead, and then Mr. O'Hara? Mr. O'Hara, why don't you go ahead, please?
Once again, I'm Tom O'Hara, and I'm at 261 Beach Avenue, Uncle Bill's Pancake House. And I kind of agree with everything that pretty much he just said, and the additional traffic. And I mean, I don't have a ton of recyclable, but I just think that, you know, doing it to a commercial property isn't the right thing to do. I can understand if you have other properties, you know, but if I put out maybe 4 toters, and to bring another company in just to take care of 2 more toters just seems not okay with me.
Can I ask you, Mr. O'Hara, the toters, are they the 96-gallon, the big ones? Just
Yeah.
okay.
Mm-hmm. No, I have a 1.5-yard dumpster that they dump for me
Okay.
that I've had forever. I put recyclables in, so that's like 2 toters.
Okay.
And then I have other toters next to it in case that one doesn't hold it all. So they're only dumping the one dumpster for me. But I'm just, you know, I don't put out a whole lot of cardboard. You know, my cardboard, actually, we take care of our own cardboard through, with Congress Hall. We do a lot of joint stuff together to try to keep the trucks away from the area, because we do trash together. We do all our cardboard into a dumpster, you know, and so we try to do the best we can do with the traffic and parking and everything. I mean, we share parking, in each other's lots, so that's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Mr. O'Hara. Anyone else on this ordinance? Dennis, and then, Jules, sorry.
Jules Roush, 1010 New York Avenue. Peter Cole, our president, was going to be here, but I'm here speaking on behalf of the Taxpayers Board. We had a board meeting last Thursday, and frankly, this subject has been on our schedule for well over a year. We've had a number of conversations with the various city people over the year to discuss the issue of recycling. I think it's important to remember that for some 20-odd years or more, and I know it's gone back for like 5 or 6 various mayors, the ordinance that is in existence in this community is an ordinance that says, and I may paraphrase it, the collection of recyclables is for residential properties only. The collection for recyclables for commercial is at their own sole expense by contract, whomever they choose. Long about 2017, during an administrative change, there was an unfortunate circumstance where the contracts that the city had for recycle kind of fell between the cracks. And there was no continuation of the program that had been in existence for many, many years. And then we kind of got backed into the corner of getting into the recycling business, which is frankly unfortunate. The municipalities, that's not a good practice. I know Jiff, our insurance agent, has recommended that we not be participating in this kinds of activity. The board, the TPA board has looked at how to be fair to all taxpayers, commercial as well as residential. There's no question that the commercial businesses are in business to make a profit. Their business is generated and increases based upon their increase in business. And it's a likelihood that their increase in generating recyclables is going to be directly attributed to how their business cycle grows. The taxpayer should not have any responsibility to pick up any portion of whatever their business generates. That's something that's a business expense that they need to be responsible for and pay for. After much discussion of how to be fair, we believe that the taxpayer, residential and commercial, should be treated equally on the basis that each one would receive one 96-gallon container for one collection per week. Anything requiring anything in addition to that should be picked up by the individual customer and contracted by whomever they choose based on their needs. The city would be well advanced to provide only the minimum services that would necessarily be attributed for somebody living in town. If it was limited to one container only, that, in our opinion, based on an unsophisticated survey, would handle the normal residential property owner on a weekly basis. 96 gallons is a lot of material, but we also have the benefit that if anyone goes above that at any particular time, they can take it out to our public works and dispose of it free of charge. That opportunity is always there. So it's our recommendation before City Council that you adjust the ordinance to reflect one 96-gallon container for collection once per year, available to both residential and commercial. Thank you.
Mr. Roush, I'm
Yes.
sorry, you said one container, and then I missed what you said after that.
One 96-gallon container for collection once per week.
Once per week.
For each of those, residential and commercial. Anything beyond that would then have to be contracted for outside. That frankly serves a number of purposes if you think about it. If you have a residential property that is normally becomes a commercial property by way of seeking rentals, and they increase beyond the need for a 96-gallon container, they would automatically be notified that they've got to increase their capacity, and that would trigger them then to have to go and have a commercial contract. So we think this is a fair and equitable solution, and we bring that before you.
Mr. Rouse, just to be clear, from the TPA's perspective, maybe not your own, but otherwise you changing from 2 96 gallons to 1 96 gallon is what you're suggesting. Otherwise, you agree with the ordinance is what I'm basically asking.
That's correct.
You as in the TPA. Okay, thank you. Dennis, I know you had your hand up. Thank you, Jules.
Somebody's notes are these your notes, Jules?
Can I see those first?
That was an awful lot of paper for a short speech.
Dennis, I know who you are, but if you'd be so.
Yeah, I'm Dennis Crowley, still on 806 Lafayette Street, Cape May. I don't like to read stuff to you, but let me just read something to you for just a second. The City Council believes that the creation of an advisory committee to assist the council in achieving its goal of providing an appropriate level of municipal service at a minimum cost to taxpayers would be in the best interest of the city, the residents, the property owners, the business owners, and the visitors. That's the charter of the Municipal Taxation and Revenue Committee, as designed by the City Council, sponsored originally by Shane Meyer, who made the motion to introduce that resolution. Thanks, Shane, for that. This issue before you today is a Band-Aid on a very complicated problem that is the recycling program in the city of Cape May. The recycling laws go back to 1986, 1987, 1994, 2004, 2016, and these are laws that require a mandatory recycling program in municipalities. It does not require curbside pickup by municipalities. It requires that a municipality have a recycling program. We have an ordinance that has a solid waste program, and it's bifurcated into a recycling program as of 2007. That program was generated based on assumptions that no longer exist in the economic realities of New Jersey. One of the reasons, and Jules referenced it when the city got caught short on its recycling program before and patched together this in-house curbside program. That was sold primarily on the notion that it would be almost paying for itself. It was going to be a revenue generator because the state said that it was going to be a revenue generator. In the intervening years, the revenue prospectus of recycling nationwide has cratered to a point where it's almost non-existent. And yet we have a program based on that now faulty assumption. This is the kind of a program that MTRAC ought to be looking at in its entirety. A comprehensive analysis of what it was, why it was done that way, and what has happened to it over the intervening 8 to 10 years is something that MTRAC was designed to do for the city. So you may move forward on this if you want to. There are certain operational problems, and we've heard a lot of them tonight, not the least of which would be that you're actually adding a layer of more trucks into the city, in which one of the main cost of living complaints we've always heard from a lot of people is there's too damn many trash trucks for all over town. Pardon the language.
Trash?
My point really is it's probably not a good idea to move forward on such a myopic approach to a single problem. And by the way, it is a huge problem because we've seen the pictures. I saw the last time this was presented at the council, we all saw these pictures. It's a huge cost, quality of life problem for the city to have our streets look like this. There's no question about that. But in doing so, please understand that you're not solving the problems inherent in the current recycling program and what it is and how much it's costing and why is it costing that much and what can we do as an alternative to make it cost less for everybody. So my comments are that if you want to make the Band-Aid approach to the trash on the streets, you can do that. But understand that MTRAC really should be the place where a comprehensive look at this whole problem and hopefully followed by a set of recommendations after careful study of the whole problem may be a better way to serve the community than just saying, let's limit it to 1 trash can or 2 trash cans or 6 trash cans or whatever the number might be, because you have not only a legitimate concern on the part of the businesses, you also have a legitimate concern on the part of the taxpayers who don't put out any recycling trash and yet pay for all that service. So my recommendation would be for you to ask MTRAC, and we'll do it anyway, but it would be nice if the council said, let's take a look at this.
Understood.
Dennis, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So the TPA indicates that this doesn't go far enough. We had some business operators here indicating it goes too far. Your suggestion on behalf of MTRAC is that council table this, preserve the status quo, let MTRAC study it, make a recommendation?
Yes, that's correct. Thank you. I'm glad Chris is here to capsulize what I was trying to say all along.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's my comment.
Thank you. Is anyone else here on this ordinance? And by the way, I do think council will be discussing this and maybe answering some of your questions that you brought up.
Stacy Shan, 928 Columbia Avenue. One of the things that Jules mentioned was that with insurance, trash collection, also recycling pickup, has the number one comp injuries because of how people, with weight and everything. When it comes to recycling pickup, there's a lot of businesses that have more pickup because they had so much, the city was going out more than once a week to pick up the recycling. To me, that's not fair to taxpayers. We're all paying for the same municipal services. Now they're getting theirs picked up twice a week versus the residents once a week, which residents probably only have enough that gets picked up once a week. But still, why, when it's a business expense, when they have more cardboard because they're selling more, that they shouldn't be putting that profit to the removal of their trash, recyclables, whatever. They have to get rid of their trash, so why can't they also pay for the removal of the recycling if it requires them more than what the limit is set by the council? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Evening, Robert Shapansky. I live on Shumpike Road, south of the canal, but it's in Lower Township. Hello, board. I'm here on behalf of Washington Commons Condominium Association, where I've served as management secretary since 2018. 315 Ocean Street consists of 35 property tax-paying owners. In 2024, our site block, 1034 Lot 1, will have contributed $157,875 in property taxes to the city of Cape May. For years, the city has provided recycling pickup services for commercial properties with no limit on collection day. Though commercial properties can generate more recyclables than residential properties, we are assessed at a higher tax rate to offset those costs. We believe as a condominium, each owner who pays taxes should receive the same services as an owner or store or home that is not part of a condominium. To lump us all together in one address is patently unfair and unreasonable. Essentially, this ordinance will restrict R35 unit owners to one 5-gallon bucket per week. This is no different than all the separate businesses on the Washington Street Mall where the buildings are connected, but they would be considered individuals. We ask the council to revise the proposed ordinance to possibly be less restrictive or coherently to address some of the other issues. Thank you.
Thank you.
Question?
Anyone else this evening? With that, I do want to ask Eric Brzezinski, our superintendent, if he would join us up here. And one of the reasons is, obviously, some of the questions that got answered tonight, to talk about the genesis of this ordinance. It didn't necessarily actually start with anyone up here at the table. I'll throw the blame right at you, Eric. You're welcome.
I'll take it.
But in all seriousness, it came from our Department of Public Works and frankly our laborers who work in trash and recycling collection. And as council members, we have obviously difficult decisions that we have to look at. I think you just heard 4 different opinions on what we should do with this ordinance from varying. I've heard people say stop collecting recycling, which was said. Go private. Go. You know, we've heard every aspect of this, but I can maybe throw a little bit of a softball to Eric now, since I've already put you in the batter's box. I think one thing I can say right from the beginning is I'm very sympathetic to some of the business owners that have, I would say, for the most part, played by the rules. Won't be businesses that you may see in some of the photographs. But the problem is there are people who are 100% taking advantage, and the photographs that I've seen were not collected over, hey, take a photo of that, that's terrible. In fact, Councilwoman McDade went on a trash truck ride one day, followed the DPW, and in one day took most of the photos that was, I think all the photos that were given to City Council. And look, I'm a business owner myself too. I am sympathetic to this and understand it. But I also know that no commercial recycling or trash pickup would pick up the way we're picking up today. No, I could not hire someone to come in. I mean, I guess you could if you paid enough, but to come in and place 24 individual cans into the back of a truck. I'll give you the example of how we do it at the Chalfont. We pay a private recycling company, comes in, we have a dumpster. One driver comes in with the truck, puts the arms into the dumpster, dumps it, puts it back, and leaves. He never gets out of the truck. I just hope people understand that that is a big difference between having people hanging off the back of the truck and loading 24, sometimes more. And the problem is we don't have established rules. And as the vice president of the TPA quoted, we're already outside of the code. We've known this. This is not a surprise. But if somebody asks me who gets collected and who doesn't, I'm the mayor and I don't have an answer to that question. So we have a problem. And the solicitor probably didn't like me saying that, but it's the honest truth. I don't know the answer to the question, which tells me we have to come up with some solution. And again, coming from our DPW workers who are saying, and I think anyone can imagine if you're riding on that truck and you're thinking, why is City Council putting us through this? We're jumping off the truck, collecting all this recycling, cardboard that's scattered all over the sidewalk. Then we're getting 24 different barrels. Then we're putting it back. And then we're being called out to do it a second time. And it puts Eric in a very awkward situation because we don't know where we stand within the code, because frankly we're not. So city council, as the legislators, have a job to do. We have to figure out how to do this in the most fair and equitable way. Eric, I'll throw it to you from there.
All right.
But I do think a reminder of why we're here, and some of the photos kind of remind people, like, hey, this isn't Cape May City government trying to just take away services or something. I mean, we take this really seriously. So if you would, go to your why you came to this solution.
So we came to, there's a little backstory on it. Go back to 2018. The ordinance, I believe, was that Jules Roush mentioned tonight, that it's up to the commercial, that ordinance has not changed since recycling started in Cape May City. So on top of that, go back to 2018, previous administration, the contracts with Gold Medal came in too high. So an inside committee with Joe Picard, Pat DiArco, Neil Young, and other administration was, hey, let's take recycling back on. It will save money over the course of the couple years. It pays for itself, basically, is what the thing was. Simple mathematics. Going into that, 2019 is when the city of Cape May took it on. 2019 to 2024, 2019, we were probably, what, a 9-month town? 2024, we're a 12-month town now.
But I mean, the main issue that changed in recycling, and it doesn't matter if we're picking it up or a private company's picking it up, it's still the same. Basically, China stopped buying recycling. One of our biggest exports, all the Chinese boats would come, deliver products, and unfortunately, we have a trade imbalance, so they were bringing ships back empty. So instead of keeping them empty, we would put our recycling on that. They would recycle those materials for probably to sell us more products back to the United States. That stopped happening because they stopped taking recycling.
Correct.
Look, I'm speaking in generalizations, but that's basically what happened.
So
So we no longer, it was we no longer, it was not right, it was no longer a commodity, really.
So going back to the Blue Diamond era of collection in Cape May, you didn't see as much out because Blue Diamond had the rule, and it's in the ordinance, that any commercial property must have the recycle tucked away out of eyesight. So, for example, and I'm not like trying to put it out there, but you go through Carpenter's Lane and Lowell Lane, there's no cardboard sitting at the curb because it was tucked away. Now, the city ordinance for us to pick it up has to be at the curb, because we're not allowed on private property. So with that being said, when Blue Diamond did it, they picked up multiple times a week in those areas because it's so congested. We can't pick up multiple times a week. We have 5 days of pickup, 1 day each route, with 3 guys on the truck. When we took over the program, it was supposed to be 4 guys, 2 summer guys, and 2 part-time guys. We don't have that. We keep losing the employees because of CDL. They're going elsewhere for CDL. They're going to Blue Diamond or Gold Medal or Waste Management, making almost 2 or 3 times the amount that we pay for a CDL driver. So this is also to help offset some of the shortage of employees that we have. It's a nightmare. It really is. The guys out there picking up the stuff.
Could we see some of the examples, just so everyone?
And for instance, on these photos like this, it's like this because we only offer a 1 time a week pickup. Most of these businesses had their stuff picked up 2 or 3 times a week by the outside contractor.
Can I ask a quick question? So when Blue Diamond was doing it back in 2018, they were picking up twice a week.
Correct. On Mondays and Thursdays were the mall area.
Was that under the direction of the city?
That was not. It was
the-
them as the business owner going to do
The
it.
business, so Blue Diamond did all of the recycling pickup for all of the
All of City
businesses?
of Cape May. All of City of Cape May.
All of the businesses, but what I'm saying is did the businesses pay for the recycling pickup?
That I don't know. That would be a finance question.
Okay, because people are saying that the ordinance stated that the businesses weren't being picked up prior to 2018. So I'd like to have clarification on that. What's that?
I'm
I
sorry.
don't think there is.
I don't think there is clarification. I think that is where we found ourselves, with an ordinance that stipulates that the commercial
But it wasn't being
businesses.
followed.
Right, and so we could go back and try and unwind that. When I looked at this.
And it was being, I'm sorry to cut you off, but it was being followed back in 2018 and 2019 when Blue Diamond was picking up the commercial stops, because it was up to the commercial in the ordinance to supply their own pickup.
So the,
And then even, go ahead. Okay, and then even further, and I did look at these pictures, and, I agree that that is unsightly. There's no doubt. But in our rules, is there any way, do we talk about stacking and kind of packing the way that they need to be done?
There is a stacking and bundling up. It's supposed to be twined,
Yeah,
all of it.
right.
It's supposed to be twined, like, right now, like, that's against code right now.
Right.
'Cause it's not
But I
twined up.
think there's also a component to this, that one is, this is what drivers are going out on the street, and this is what they're faced with. And as a city, no private contractor would pick any of this up. I spent a lot of time over the weekend looking at like waste management's criteria. They wouldn't pick it up if your recycling as a residential did not meet the criteria, which is a lidded, something at the curb with a lid on and not overflowing. Cardboard on the side wouldn't be picked up, and that's a residential. Commercial, they're very prescriptive. You've got to have your dumpster a certain size, location certain size, off-street certain size, et cetera. I certainly appreciate that from the commercial property side, they feel as if, this is a quick change to something that they've had for a long period of time. But from an operations standpoint, and this is where I spent my time professionally for 35 years, when you have employees coming to you and saying, we need help, from the city's perspective, from my perspective as a council member, someone comes and says, we need help because these are the conditions. Our option is, do we start now policing the way people are putting out their recycling material? Because then we need to hire more code enforcement to go out and do a run through the city to make sure that people are putting their recycling material out the right way. This is not an easy option, but the option is that we're putting people's safety at risk. It's a public, this is a public nuisance. These sidewalks, you can't even walk down. So when we looked at the ordinance, we went back to the one that was on the books. It says that the commercials were responsible for it. How we got to this point, I think we could all spend a lot of time going back and trying to figure that out. I'm not sure what that exercise would benefit us in any way. The fact of the matter is we have to move forward.
Absolutely, yeah, and I agree.
And the one problem with enforcement, you pull up to the stop, it's in violation, so the truck skips it. We send out, the recycling coordinator goes out to give a ticket. It then now has to sit there for another week, and then this compounds and doubles, or do we have to then send out a special truck when they fix it? Because that becomes the scheduling problem of, you can do enforcement, but the problem is, the reason why they don't write them up is because they know they're just going to have to go back in and pick it up anyway.
Right.
So that's the problem with enforcement with this kind of thing, because it just stacks up.
Right.
Well, and it's not just the stacking up. It's every week, residents like me have to look at
Public
the
nuisance.
accumulation that sits out there.
It's a public nuisance.
And, a massive number of containers. It is a little bit of a problem for some of the.
And that's why having a limit on the number is an appropriate control, so that it doesn't build, like Eric said, this is now, we're under the old rules or the old method, Blue Diamond, it would have been maybe picked up 2-3 times a week, but now they're saving up because the city's going to pick it all up. They're not doing some of their extra work and having maybe 2-3 collections a week. They know, I'll just leave it out there and the city will come and get it. And I think that's really the problem.
Councilman Meyer, I'm sorry.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. I think it's a really difficult situation when we look at this because, in my opinion, this ordinance is not perfect. Okay, and it's causing problems. Not just, it might be fixing one problem, but it has other problems associated with it. I don't think we should act on it at this time because I think there's an opportunity for us to find some kind of middle ground with the businesses. I understand there's room issues about where people, we live in a historic town. We know there's a lot of traffic because the roads are small. We know a lot of people don't have opportunity to put their recycling in an area that they don't have, issue is the recycling along the sidewalks and people having to walk into the street. My problem is that sometimes I have to take it upon myself to pick up people's recycling that fell into the street. I'm talking about business owners, I think there's an opportunity for us to table this and really listen to the business owners and see if there's some kind of middle ground, because, and I think that middle ground could be having stricter rules, like saying, listen, if you are a business owner, you want your recycling picked up, well, it better be on that curb between 6 and 8 o'clock in that morning. By 8:01, those trash cans should not be out. I mean, I think if the businesses want to work with us, or give us some suggestions, and come up with some kind of middle ground, I'm all about that, And this is a really tough situation for me overthinking about it, because is it about taxes, or is it about cost of doing business? Is it fair that they should pay for their own recycling? That's the cost of doing business. I think there's an opportunity to work together and figure out what the businesses need, because not every business has storage room for these things. Not every business has to. It would be fantastic if every business had their own dumpster for one guy to come in and out and dump it. But I don't think that's the case in this particular situation. And I think we've been doing it for so long. I think there's an opportunity for us to meet in the middle ground here.
My concern is in doing that, we are we're not addressing the issue. And we're turning this into an enforcement and a requirement to have to police what happens.
I don't want any enforcement. I don't want to have any police.
Okay, well then you're asking everyone to play appropriately in the sandbox, and then when that doesn't happen, what's the solution? What happens?
The picture's behind you.
That's
what
exactly
happens.
what I just said.
Yeah.
I'm asking for a solution. I'm asking for the businesses to give me a phone call and say, yeah, I know that it's a burden on the residents and then on the visitors that have to walk in the street and see this unsightly stuff sitting out all day long. I think there's an opportunity to say, how can we improve the system that we have now?
We should be operating at industry standards, and industry standards say that you don't have this material in a public space, that it is someplace either in a dumpster or, that's industry standards.
Deputy Mayor?
Yes, there's no doubt, this is a tough situation. I can understand, people want to take care of it now, people want to maybe wait. I heard Mr. Crowley talk about, MTRAC getting involved, but I think it's an opportunity where we can get maybe a task force involved to take a look at it, maybe some business owners, get some stakeholders in here, have some of MTRAC involved, of course, the DPW, the manager, and come up with a solution that would really benefit, whether or not it's, making sure that the businesses don't do this, because this is unsightly, there's no doubt. Anybody who's looking at that is going to say, that's unacceptable. Whether or not and we can also, do great things with routing. We can, go to certain zones on certain days, but I think that we have business owners. I've spoken to the bid. We have, a lot of different people that I think that need to weigh in on this, and I think we can do it and really come together. And that's.
And you know what? To tag on that, when the businesses survive in Cape May and when they thrive in Cape May, it benefits the taxpayers.
It does.
That's if the businesses are not open.
Let me just.
Excuse me, I'm talking. If the businesses are not open, the people are not parking at the meters. We are a different town. We are more of a 12-year town. We should embrace that and figure out a way to work with the business owners with this. And make, I'm not trying to give away the house here. I just think there's an opportunity here to look at this a little bit better.
I agree with every comment that's been made, while some of them are kind of counter, but I agree. The problem we have right now is we have an ordinance that says they don't get picked up. And to put together a committee of business owners. I have to tell you, I spoke to several business owners that had no idea other businesses were getting picked up by the city. So this has been kind of who knows who and what about the recycling thing, and now we're trying to establish some rules, which means some people are going to get upset about it. But we have to have a set of rules that everyone's abiding by. And like I said, we have an ordinance that says they don't get picked up. So.
And I don't mean to throw anything into the middle of this, but what does that mean for us from a liability standpoint with the Jeff? If we have a risk management compliance that says that we're not supposed to be doing this, and we have an employee who is injured on the job.
The bigger problem from a liability standpoint is what was highlighted earlier, which is these workers' comp claims
Yeah.
from the pickup.
Right. Yeah,
That's-
which is my primary reason for supporting this, is I'm looking at the employees here.
Mm-hmm. And I just have to say, I don't think we've showed where there's like 24 trash cans lined up, but you have multiple properties where that's the norm.
Yes,
And-
and like going back to this is, like I said, let's go back to if we want to get the business owners involved, let's go back to the business owners and say, what did you guys do in 2017, 2018? Show us your bills that you got picked up for recycling. It's going to show multiple pickups.
This
This is why they don't do multiple pickups no more. And you're looking at the pictures behind you. That's a whole week of cardboard that sits in their spots.
And we're being asked by DPW, they're showing us locations where there's, again, more, I think there was 30, 24, or 32 gallon cans at one location. And ask yourselves, who wants to jump off the back of a truck and pick up 30, 32 gallon trash cans and throw them in the back of a truck? God bless you guys that are doing that, honestly, but I'm very sympathetic to that as a normal practice.
I mean, really what it comes, I mean, before you set up a task force, you really would have to give real direct guidance to the task force on what its direction would be, because it's really it's a volume issue. Obviously, the places within, most of our properties in Cape May can't hold a week's worth of volume of recyclable material or trash. So that means you have to do multiple stops. So that means if we're going to ask Public Works to do it, we're going to have to hire more staff to make sure that we pick it up and less stops, because that's the only way that, if we're going to say, hey, we're going to pick it up, but we're going to only pick up so many per day, it's just a volume control issue. So we really have to make a decision on how much, and that's really what this ordinance was supposed to do, was to set a volume limit of what was going to be the city's responsibility. I mean, we could sit there and say, hey, we'll collect 2 10-yard dumpsters or 2 5-yard dumpsters at a spot. But then you got to put it all in the dumpster. We got to be able to, either we have to back the truck up to that dumpster, or you have to move that, when we get there, you have to move that dumpster down to the street so that we can tip the dumpster and then you can move it back. So it's not a task force isn't going to solve that issue, because you're going to get the business community going to say, we want you to pick it up. You're going to get the homeowners and the taxpayers association, and they're going to say, oh, we shouldn't be doing it because it's not in the best cost model for the city. And if that's not what we want to do, then we just say, hey, everybody goes and picks up I think you either got to either come up with a finite number, or you got to say, I don't think there is I mean, there's always a middle ground, but in order to pick up that much recycling, that recycling is not generated in a week. It's not in a day, it's in a week. And in order for Public Works to pick it up, we would need to make 2 or 3 stops at many locations every week. And that's typical in many other communities in the summertime. Where I was in Upper Township, you're thinking of the sleepy Upper Township, non-commercial places. We did commercial recycling. Some places we were there 3 times a week, but we stopped and we said, commercials, we can't pick up 20 cans. We said we implemented a dumpster program where you had to containerize it in a larger container, and we'll come and pick up that larger container. But it's still, the decision still has to come from council on what do you want and how much do you want to do? Because it's a total volume control or how many times you want to do it. If you want to say, hey, we'll pick up 296 gallons 3 times a week, I could probably pick up most of that, and many would do. There's still going to be some businesses, like some of the larger hotels and restaurants, that still probably wouldn't be able to handle that. Some of them I'd probably need to go to them 3 or 4 times a week, to handle the recycling demand, depending on how much of a container recycling area they have. We had the gentleman from Washington Common. I mean, I'm sure that they had, when they, you ask why was that, how are we treating that differently? Well, that's a site plan that had, came in and got approval from our board as a common, as a facility that had probably a common trash area or designated trash areas for each of the different parts of the building or whatever. I'm sure that, there is some designated trash location. So that's why you treat that as a singular place, as opposed to, it's typical for shopping centers and strip malls and those kinds of things to be treated as a single place, just because of the volume of material gets to be too voluminous. But that's, I agree that we can look at it more, but I think we need, if you do that, you need to have clear direction, because what this ordinance was doing was looking at setting up a baseline volume that we kind of differentiate, because there's always going to be that one more, okay, how many businesses do you want to help and do, council, I can work with Eric and we can come up with, how many trucks we need and how many crews we need to pick up,
I think that's an important thing to know.
So,
but realize that to do that in the summertime, you're going to be looking at 2, 3 multiple stops at some of these locations.
And hiring 2 to 3 more staff members to do it and to take on that additional liability. I mean, I don't know. I mean, that says to me, now we're in the trash and recycling business, and we may not be best suited to do that on the scale that would be needed for us, based on, we don't meet industry standards for the service level.
And just I just want to remind everybody, we're updating an ordinance that today says no recycling pickup for commercial.
we're not updating any ordinance, it's already in there.
I'm saying that's what exists today, right? Now we're saying, okay, everybody gets 2 96-gallon toters.
Correct.
By the way, which I think is, you could do as just as many 32-gallon or 48-gallon to get to the same amount of gallons. But
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I keep going back to, we have to establish something. And just being out of compliance is not the way we can do business.
I'm not asking for a task force or I'm just asking City Council, give me 2 more weeks so I can talk to the business owners a little more about this. See if there's any, and I think I need to do a little more research on this. I feel like this ordinance is not perfect.
I don't think any of us would disagree with it being perfect, because there's someone coming out at the end of this.
Councilmember McDade.
I'm sorry. Whether or not it be, the commercial businesses, or the inference that we would be stopping residential, or the fact that the city's now going to take an evaluation for outsourcing, which could increase cost, or that we're going to assume more responsibility for doing recycling because it's obvious that the demand is out there. There's 4 options on the table, and none of these are probably going to satisfy everyone, unfortunately. And so, I mean, taking 2 more weeks, having a conversation with the business owners, that's fine. But at the end of the day, are you going to get 100% assurance and compliance that they're going to adhere to the criteria? And then the taxpayers have to understand what that cost might be. And I
First off, let me just say, Mr. Meyer, if you want 2 more weeks, you got it from me.
I want to see what level of commitment these business owners are going to be, are willing to give to the city to make this a better plan. That's
You
all.
making that a motion?
I mean, if we're done with the discussion, I'll make a motion, but
if you don't mind, I would support that motion, but can we just finish the discussion?
Absolutely, that's only appropriate.
Appreciate it. I mean, certainly you could, but, so Eric, I mean, I just want to finish this a little bit, unless anybody has anyone else to say, but you obviously put a lot of time into this and thought, and I know you looked at other municipalities and what they do. I think one thing that should be said, that this is not something that kind of came out of thin air. You looked at how each municipality up and down the coast, if not.
Yes, the Jersey Shore, basically.
And just to highlight too, we even have the TPA saying 1 96-gallon. We're saying 2 96-gallons, which actually I tend to agree with the TPA, at least in the how many cans do you actually need as a residence. I'm not, but I do think the 2 96 was a compromise to try to include the most.
And I believe our commercial one, we were doing 4 96-gallon cans, not 2.
For the residential condos was 4.
Yes.
Multi-units.
Yeah, multi-units.
So I just want to add something. Council probably loses no time on this by tabling it, and if you want to consider it at a follow-up meeting, because there's an effective date in here of January 1st, 2025. So it's not like, even if you acted on this today, the provisions wouldn't be implemented until after the new year. So I just wanted to point that out. There's really no time lost in taking additional time to consider it.
And I think it's also good to remember, the public works yard is open 6 days a week to drop off your recycling or trash at no charge.
No trash.
No trash?
Just recycle.
We'll take trash.
I just have one thing I'd like to ask, then. It sounds like we may be moving towards a motion to wait 2 more weeks for a decision. I would like the business owners to tell you, if they had to have a dumpster placed in their property, what is the cost? This is all about money.
Right.
This is plain and simple. They don't want to spend the money, and I get that. That's just one more, like they're saying, we pay a lot in taxes and fees, et cetera, and you guys are just hitting us with one more fee. Not really. What we've done is we've given them something since 2018 that they shouldn't have had, but nonetheless, the business, the way it's been going, they've had this for free, and now we're expecting a cost to be put on them. I think everybody should understand, what is that cost? Tell me what it is. I own a business. It's not in Cape May. They've never picked up one piece of recycling. I need 2 dumpsters on my property that get picked up twice a week. I know what it costs, and it's the way it is every other municipality I know of. But nonetheless, let's make sure we understand what it is we're talking about here, because I can't believe that businesses want the places to look like they look. I just don't. I think that they're more interested, they should be more interested in a more attractive property. This doesn't give anybody a good impression. I'm sorry. So that one little piece of information I think would be helpful.
To add on to that, Mike, just in all seriousness, this is just me talking to another business owner. For the cost that it costs us to have 1 or 2 dumpsters picked up a week, I cannot imagine putting out 30 24-gallon trash cans on a weekly basis and pulling all of those cans back in. I just, as a business owner, I would tell other business owners, you might want to look into just getting a dumpster and having someone handle that service. And that's coming from someone who my wife would call very frugal. But I think makes all the sense in the world. It's a lot less work. Anything else on this one? I think we talked trash enough this evening. We have you want to make that in the motion, Mr. Meyer, Councilman Meyer?
Yes, Mayor, thank you.
We have a motion to table. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Just to clarify, are we motioning to table to the December 3rd meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Motion that table to December 3rd meeting in a second. Any questions or comments on that, council? Roll call?
Thank you.
Sure. Roll call?
Councilmember Yeager?
Reluctant, yes.
Councilmember Meyer?
Yes.
Councilmember McDade?
Reluctantly, yes.
Deputy Mayor Baldwin?
Yes.
Mayor Mullock?
Yes.
Okay. Next up, we have.
Thanks, guys.
Eric, thank you very much. We appreciate it. And
Thank you.
you guys do an excellent job no matter what. We appreciate you. Thank you, Eric. Okay.
We do have more ordinances, just one second. Here you go. Take care, guys. All right, next up, we have ordinance 547-2024, ordinance canceling certain funded capital appropriation balances and reappropriating said funds for other capital projects. There's also a public hearing on this tonight, Mayor.
Is anyone here wishing to speak on ordinance 547? Please come on up.
Stacy Shan, 928 Columbia Avenue. I guess my questions with this, I went through the different amounts here that, for these bonds. And some of these bonds have been funded, some haven't been funded. So are we going with, if they haven't been funded, are we going to bond additionally for these projects?
So these bonds have been authorized, so we're not issuing any new debt? I mean, if you're saying, I mean, so obviously, since we have not funded some of these projects, we have not gone out and taken permanent long-term bond
Right, you
financing
haven't
for them.
gotten the money for it, yes.
Correct. So if we need to in the future, they would be rolled into a future bond sale that we would have, just like the 2023 bond or the 2024 bond. They would just be rolled into a future bond.
Right, so we've already bonded almost $10 million in capital for this year. It was a capital thing. So this is going to be, in addition to that, we're going to be bonding for a lot of these things that aren't funded in this ordinance. And when it comes to the projects that it's going to be funded for, okay, Lafayette Street Park, the plan was approved, move forward. Bank Street retaining wall. I attend about 90% of these meetings. I have not seen what this project entails.
Then you missed the presentation that I made at the bond presentation back earlier this year. That's for a flood resiliency wall that goes from Cape Island Creek along Elmira Street, down Elmira, behind the substation, and then behind Bank Street parking lot to prevent the floodwaters from coming over the bank. And I'm sure if you've been down there this week, it's been flooded 2 or 3 times, every high tide this week. So this wall, flood resiliency wall, would help that nuisance flooding.
Well, the
there.
thing
And that
is
was proposed.
if the water doesn't come out to relieve the buildup, where's it going to go?
Well,
Is
it's
it
going to
gonna
stay in
go
Cape
up to
Island Creek.
property?
It's going to stay in Cape Island Creek.
It
where it
never,
belongs.
okay, so you put a glass.
Just
Yeah,
real quick, I
it's
get it.
engineering.
But can we do the ordinance, and then I get it that we could talk about those projects.
Well, no, because you're bonding for a project that's never been approved by council.
Yes, we have. It was on this year's bond.
You have CAFA permits?
That's what we're in the process of applying for. Yes, we're
Okay,
applying
because
for them.
to me, you're doing a project that really the homeowners haven't been informed about that could cause extra flooding into their properties.
No, it's going to prevent flooding from their properties.
That's the people down by Bank Street, but people up the creek are going to get more water in their property because there's
they
only
won't.
so much place for the water to go. And if it doesn't go onto Bank Street, then it's going to come further into the properties on Lafayette Street higher up. I know there's people that post pictures, oh, it's high tide, look at all the water in my backyard. Well, if the water's not going to go into Bank Street and relieve that pressure, it's going to go someplace else, and other people's property is going to flood them. It might even also be flooding West Cape May on the other side of the creek.
And my responsibility is to keep floodwaters out of a public road, and that's the priority for this project, is to keep water out of a public street. If it floods into a flood area that is within a flood hazard area, those homes are elevated and above the flood hazard area, and they won't have the problems.
Actually, where it's flooding is one of the higher parts in town, that they don't even need flood insurance because they're so high. But yet it's flooding in their backyard, it might increase even more. Okay, but let me get back to what you're bonding for. Have these projects already been completed and we're just kind of moving the money around and putting the right spin on it so that it's covered by these bonds? Like, an example would be, we're taking $5,272 from Franklin Street School bond, and we're putting it towards the Lafayette Street Park, Franklin Street Scape, the tennis club improvements, and ideas like that.
My recollection from the last meeting when Mr. Haney was here was that this was an evaluation of all projects from this period of time, and these were monies that had not been applied to these individual projects. So this was sort of a summary cleanup, for lack, not a technical term financially, but really a sort of taking all of the projects, looking at them and saying, we were supposed to spend, and I'm just making an example, $50,000, but we only spent $42,500. So we're taking the additional monies and we're summarizing it through in this document. And this was sort of an effort that dated back, I think, to 2011. It was my recollection, all the way through. And that this is sort of a routine process that should be happening probably more systemically, but this was.
Well, I kind of understand what you're saying, but that would be if the projects were all funded and we had the money. But some of these projects aren't funded. So what are you going to do with that money?
These projects are all in the projects that we've listed, improvements to city buildings, facilities, and parks, including but not limited to Lafayette Street Park, Bank Street retaining wall, Franklin Street streetscape, and tennis club improvements. That in its entirety are all items and projects that are in current bonds that have been approved and authorized by council. We've not created any new projects or items that have not been listed in a current duly authorized bond approved by the city council, or city council, not the city council, but by city council. So there's no new projects being proposed by this. The projects that the monies are going to be redirected to are all projects that have already been authorized and approved by city council. It might have been a city council in 2020 or 2021 or 2023.
And we all know that the bonds to be here had to have been approved by council. That's not my point, because we all realize in order to be here, they had to be approved by council. So it's a fact if they were funded or not funded.
No, I'm saying that the projects that we're going to move this money into have all been
She's
approved.
talking about the origin of the funds.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
not disputing that. What I'm saying is, I think the implication was that we're just taking this old money and creating new projects that have not been vetted by city council. All my point was that all these monies are being moved into projects that have already been approved by bond ordinance by city council.
Well,
that's all I'm saying.
Well, the only one I was bringing up was the Bank Street retaining wall.
And that's on the 2023 or the
Because it was
2024
not really-
capital bond
It was never a
project.
vote taken by council.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
Okay. I'll go and ask the clerk after this meeting to find me the resolution where you guys voted on the Bank Street.
It's listed on the 2024 capital bond. There's a project listed in there.
And by the way, and just to be clear, there was also a Stockton Coastal Research done in that area. They had little measuring tools and all of the.
I know we approved the project to be looked at with Stockton or whoever it was that did it.
Right.
I remember that. But the fact that you actually approved where this wall is going to go, what it's going to be made of, how far in it's going to go, I don't think we've ever seen those details.
I don't think we have done that. I think we've approved the bond to do that, and I would expect that the city manager will give us a presentation at a later date when that project is more ready to be presented. I don't know what phase it's in right now.
For me, we're putting money towards a project when we really don't know how much it's going to be cost in the end and what the ramifications are for it on what materials are going to be used for it. That was my reason for bringing up that project.
Okay.
Mayor, it has been 5 minutes.
Also, on that ordinance, it talks about bond ordinance 413-2021. But it doesn't say in that ordinance how much is going to go towards that. And when you add up everything else, it actually comes up to $560,000 and $889. So I don't know if that's a clerical error that 413 was added, and it shouldn't have been added.
What line are you referring to?
413 is not in here. It's not listed. It's not incorporated into this, the appropriations detail.
Right.
So
Which, fine, it might have just been accidentally put in there.
I would think we would have to ask Mr. Haney.
Just for the record, I called Kevin
Okay.
and left him a message before the meeting.
Okay.
So I know people are always like, oh, you should have asked us ahead of time. I did, I tried, but I didn't get a response back.
Stacy Machine, in all due respect, you really should be calling the city manager's office and then allowing us to direct or help answer those questions, not directly reaching out to the chief financial officer. In all due
In the future, I will call you.
Sounds good.
No problem with that.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Roush?
Yeah, Jules Rouse, 1010 New York Avenue. I don't want to continue on, but I have a question about the same thing. The aggregate sum of monies that's left over in these bonds, do we agree is $560,000? And what we've done is, when you look through section 1 or 2, 3, 4, and 5, you're basically designating that you're going to spend that $560,000 on such things as city buildings, facilities, parks, Lafayette Street, retaining wall, et cetera. I'd ask during the capital projects approval whether city council is going to receive a definitive number for each of the projects so that you know what's being planned, how many dollars are being asked for the approval of each project. You didn't do that when you did the capital improvements. You just had a list of things where you were going to spend money.
That's
but
correct.
not specific amounts.
But based on estimates and things like that, but yes.
I don't think there's any estimate on, as an example, on the Bank Street retaining wall. I've never seen any number associated.
There's a bond number associated that in the bond.
As a total number, not as an individual breakout.
Well, we had the initial, I'll say, seed money for the project to do the engineering and permitting, and just, I mean, that's, as Stacy said, we can't come up with a final number because until we know what the DEP permits are going to allow us to construct, we can't come up with a final engineering design of what can we construct without knowing what permits we can construct. So, once we come up with the permits and what we can build under the permitting regulations, we'll bring that project back to council for a final design analysis with a final budget cost estimate before we move
But
forward.
in the section 3 where you've got $560,000, certainly a number of these projects that are listed, that $560,000 is going to touch doing one of those projects.
No.
I mean, the Bank Street wall,
Right.
that's millions of dollars. I think
And we may not need that for that project. That was just, hey, that could be a project, but we most
Okay,
likely
so-
won't use it for that.
that you've not allocated in that $560,000 how much you're going to attribute to each of those items which you've listed. And it may be that some of these items won't get a dollar of that money. Is that correct?
Can I back up for just a second? Because I think Councilwoman McDade said this. I believe our CFO, Kevin Haney, said it early at the introduction. We probably, as a city, should have been doing this more often. This is basically house cleaning. I mean, we're talking about things that have been left over since 2011. So now you have these piles just sitting all around. We're putting them all into one ordinance toward, I would say, very worthy projects. Obviously, each of these projects will have to be vetted and approved by council, but I think all of them, it makes sense to attribute some amount of money. We could argue over what it is, but toward each one. I mean, that's what all we're doing here. It's not even new debt.
Well, it's just, we've got a tennis club. There's been money granted for that project. We heard earlier this evening, there's going to be a request for additional money.
So hopefully we don't use it.
So it's conceivable that tennis club won't be a part of that 560 grand.
It's conceivable that same amount of dollars that are listed here are 3 years from now put into a similar ordinance and used for the future electric vehicle
So
parking
we can
lot.
agree that 560,000 is not going to be divided among the numbers of the projects that are
It's
listed.
just earmarked for potential use for any one of those 4 projects, but not any percentage or set amount. That is my understanding of how this is being
Thank you.
put.
Stacy Shan, 928 Columbia Avenue. I guess I want to bring it to attention, the Franklin Street School bonding, which is 384-2019. Do we pay off the Franklin Street School debt that we had with the county? Is that project closed?
It's not closed because we haven't finalized some of the grant requirements, so we haven't received some of the final grant fundings for the project because it still hasn't been finally closed out by the county.
Okay.
So we
because
can't close it out.
That's my point of why are we taking money out of that grant, or not grant, out of that bond, when we haven't closed out the project, which we bonded for that project? Like you're taking money from a bond for a project that we haven't closed out yet. And the Franklin Street School Library, we haven't even funded that yet. So that's why I don't understand where we're taking money. I understand maybe for these ones back in 2011, and I understand that, the pool for elementary school, but to take a project that we're currently working on that hasn't been closed out, but yet we're going to take money from there, doesn't make sense.
I think the only person who can answer that question is Mr. Haney, who is not here, but I would believe that he went through this with our bond counsel and evaluated those fees. But, I don't know necessarily whether or not we hold this up. This is a second reading for this ordinance,
And we have, whether or not there's another bond or budget line item that we have funds in to cover the remaining.
Yeah,
Of course.
I mean,
We're talking about, for that line item, we're talking about 5,271
Of
out
fi-
of 560,000.
yes.
And because the ordinance is broad enough, if we needed $2,000 to put into there, the ordinance says public buildings and facilities, we can always use that additional $2,500 if I need it on the Franklin Street School
So,
projects.
Mr.
to
Dietrich,
close it
would you
out.
prefer that we amend it and just take that particular line out amount, or incorporate it, and then ask for Mr. Haney to give us a?
And if
Mr.
I could
Dillinger-
just-
I think bond counsel and the CFO reviewed it, put it all together, and looked at our financials, tabulations, and made the recommendation.
Then
I'm
we'll
comfortable
follow
with
up with a
this.
question to him, but for right now, we could move forward.
And if we need to move it to pay
Yeah.
one outstanding bill that might come in at the ninth hour for it,
could be a housekeeping, yeah.
we can use that money for that because that's one of the items that's listed in there as repairs to
Okay. That makes
facilities and buildings. So
Okay.
we can still purpose that for that.
And one of the only closeout items with it is the easement for it, which is going to be on the next council meeting.
No, it's
Or
on
on
this
this one,
one.
I'm sorry. I
Okay,
apologize.
we're in agreement.
So, bond counsel, along with Mr. Haney, has reviewed this thoroughly, and a small amendment,
All the bills
be
are in.
considered. Exactly.
Good? Do we have a motion on this, right?
No.
Oh, we don't. We just did the public hearing. Okay. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any other questions or comments, council? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Yeager?
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer?
Yes.
Councilmember McDade?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Baldwin?
Yes?
Mayor Mullick?
Yes.
And 548-2024, ordinance amending bond ordinance 399-2020 and capital ordinances 302-2016 and 418-2021, each heretofore finally adopted by the City of Cape May in the County of Cape May, State of New Jersey, to amend the descriptions set forth therein. And there is a public hearing tonight.
Is anyone here wishing to speak on 548, ordinance 548?
Jules Rouse, 1010 New York Avenue, the kind of the same thing. In this particular ordinance, you're saying you're going to use $375,000, and you list a bunch of items. But we don't know how much money is going to go to each one of them, or if we're going to spend a dime on the tennis club, or how much is going to be spent on any one of those particular items. But then when you go on to Section 3, we've allocated a specific number, 105,000, for a specific use, and then we do the same thing with body cameras, 104,000 for that. It just seems logical to me that if you're going to appropriate a bond for $1.8 million, you don't know how you're going to spend that money, where you're going to, what's it going to be allocated for? I understand you don't know the exact cost for things because it hasn't been fully designed and bid out, but by the same token, $1,800,000 not knowing exactly how you're going to spend it. I think it's a reach.
But I think we don't necessarily know because they haven't been designed yet. I mean, twice now they've talked about the tennis club. Everybody's concerned about obviously what we're going to spend at the tennis club. When we're done engineering the improvements for the tennis club, before we go out to bid, we'll bring that project to council, just like I think there's 2 resolutions on this evening for 2 projects that we want to go out to bid for. We'll present the plans to city council, look at the certification of funds. But if we don't have this bond ordinance in place, I can't come to council to get an approval to go out to bid for a project. So we just haven't gotten to that step yet. But we've based on estimates, know that we need that money available so that when we bring that project available, but we don't know exactly how much it is because we haven't fully designed the ADA improvements at the tennis club yet. We haven't done the permitting for the Elmira Street resiliency wall yet. So we don't know the final construction dollars for that, but when we are ready to go to bid for a project and we're ready, we'll bring that to council. And if we think that, hey, we need a little more discussion, we'll bring it in advance of council to take a look at it and make sure the project's going in the right direction.
It just seems as though there's a big pot of money, $1.8 million, and you're going to spend it any way you see fit on this bundle of projects that are listed, without defining how much goes to each one.
Isn't that what we do? I mean, it lists the projects. Maybe somebody agrees with some or not the other, but in here it has Lafayette Street Park. We all know that's going to cost a lot of money, so it makes sense to me to add Lafayette Street Park as one of the options.
Yeah, we listened to the tennis club again.
And honestly, Jules, that's where we're at. We've got projects moving forward. There's some upgrades, lighting and cameras and the audio visual equipment at the convention hall that we need to upgrade and replace. Those bond numbers are coming empty. So, we could have just done the ordinance to remove all that 560 of debt and then come with a brand new capital bond ordinance for $560,000 of new bond ordinance, but our bond counsel, our auditor, our CFO all says this is the best way to budget the process.
Right. The other way I would look at this is that, or I'll ask it this way, Mr. Dietrich. When you get the bids, when you get through the projects and have something final and you have the actual bids for any one of these, will it not identify the funding source as being this bond?
Exactly. We have 2 resolutions on this evening's bid for 2 projects that we brought before council to get authorization to go out to bid. We presented the budget amounts. Now that we have the bids down, we have a recommendation of award for those. Now we know the final dollar amounts. And now we can move those.
See, I believe, Mr. Roush, I think it seems counterintuitive, I think, from normal financial standards. And I've learned a little bit in being in municipal that it's going and getting the funding, and then, pardon the phrase, it's almost like you have to back into it somehow. But at the end of the day, we're required to have a budget and tie it back to a funding source. But this is sort of like a little bit of a catch-22. You've got to go out there and get the funding source so that you can move forward to get bids or get evaluations done or get schematics or get an engineer to do the work. It's the only way these things get funded, and then at the end of the day, we're supposed to make sure, and that's our job, to tie it up in a bow and say, this project, this cost, all in, is being associated with this bond.
I understand what you're saying.
Right.
It's just that I look at things a little differently.
Yeah, I can.
I'd like to know what something is going to cost before I approve the money for it. What you've done is approve the money first and then decide how you're going to spend it.
We haven't spent the money, though.
Yeah, we
I
ha-
understand you haven't spent it.
There is a big difference there, Jules. Just to be clear, if bidding comes back for the Bank Street retaining wall and it's $10 million, City Council's probably going to say, hey, Paul, we appreciate the effort, but we're not going to pay for that. I mean, that will come to this table for approval. And just a real example for tonight, right? Nature trails are on here. We actually have very good news to share. Okay. Bidding, now, remember, that's been on the website as a project, so we want everybody to know. I mean, all of these projects will follow the same formula that we've had. If you go to the website and look under projects, you're going to see all the existing projects, maybe not some minor ones or whatever, but the major projects. Any of these, pardon me, as they come up, if they're not on the website now as a project, we expect fully that it will follow that same formula. Just pointing out, like the nature trails, we put aside some funding for the nature trails. Then we went to county open space and got 90% funding, which obviously is incredible. That funding was based off of an estimated number. The bids came in under the estimated number, which obviously is excellent as well. But that's the process that we'll follow with every one of these. So I understand the concern. It does look like, okay, you're just putting some dollar amount at these things that you don't know how much it's going to cost. That's truthful. We do not know how much it's going to cost until we bid
I look at the
it
Bank
out.
Street retaining wall and think about what that thing may cost, knowing that the bridge will have to probably be replaced because that is the bottleneck.
Well,
I've made my point.
Thank you, Jules. I appreciate it. All I'll say to that is, we understand that. No one's going to bid, no one's going to vote for anything that is going to be astronomically expensive or cause damage to other properties. Sorry.
Stacy Shan, 928 Columbia Avenue. And I do have that ordinance that Paul's talking to about that was approved in July. And for the city buildings, including Lafayette Street Park, the retaining wall, it was $3.8 million that was going to be bonded for out of the almost $10 million. So when we talk about this bond and we talk various improvements for bond 399-2024, $1.8 million was never funded. So we're adding on to that other 10 million. So my point is, we're spending a lot of money on projects this year because a lot of this money that you're putting back into these other projects haven't been bonded for yet. So we still have to go out and bond to get this money to pay for these projects. And 399, various improvements, it was for 1.9 million. Is that right? What am I looking at? Yeah, that was the amount that we were going after, and it wasn't funded. And that's my point. You keep adding on to projects with more money that hasn't even been funded to be paid for.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else? All right. Do I have a motion on 548?
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any questions or comments, council? Okay, roll call.
Councilmember Yeager?
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer?
Yes.
Councilmember McDade?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Baldwin?
Yes.
Mayor Mullick?
Yes.
Mayor, I believe you may have wanted to do
Oh,
a small
yeah,
presentation before the next
actually,
section.
Just because we had this up, I did, just wanted to share quick photos. I know we're long into this meeting, so if you would, it was just the update on Lafayette Street Park Playground. That's from today. That's the ADA surface. So I think by the end of the week, kids will have this new, the black that you see in the background is just the base coat. That'll have another, I think it's forest green is the color, but that'll be a different color on the other side. But really coming along nicely. There's the green. Again, not having to deal with the mulch and all of that, and obviously this is much more wheelchair accessible for some of the kids. So it really turned out nice. There you go. That's cool. Yeah. So I just, oh, there you go. Yeah, how they put this down is kind of neat. All right, I didn't expect it to be 7:30 when this was playing, so we'll move on to the next one. Oh, this is the Christmas lights going up today. All right, there you go. Thank you. Okay, with that, we are on to the public portion on resolutions only this evening. Is that right? Yes. Okay.
Please come to the microphone if you're wishing to speak on the resolutions only.
Stacy Sheehan, 928 Columbia Avenue. I just want to ask about Resolution 309. It's for the HVAC systems in Convention Hall. I know this has been an issue with the amount of repairs that we do on a yearly basis, and I know that we actually probably, I think it was 6 years ago or 4 years ago, we actually did a study to make sure that the HVAC that was put in there was the correct size because of the fact it just wouldn't work properly, and they said it was a little bit almost on the higher end. So I see that there's a upgrade and repair for $841,000 with multi-temp with a no-bid contract. My question is, are they just repairing it, or are we putting in a new system?
New system.
Okay, because it was a little
Well, this
odd.
is in conjunction, so if you remember earlier this year, we gotten a grant to do the larger units. These are the smaller heat pump and cooler, chiller units that are on the roof. So it's the second part. But it's all replacement.
Okay, so only because, and I hope we had took into consideration the big study that, I don't know I can't remember who the engineer was.
Mott.
Thank you. That did to evaluate the system so that we would have, when we put in and put a better system in, it would work properly. So you're saying that that you took that into consideration and that these are going to work good when we put them in?
Yes.
Okay. Because I think a lot of times the problem we have too is when we go between multi-temp and the other one, I can't remember, I think it starts with an F. Thank you. That, one does one job, the next one comes in, changes the work from the other one, they go back and forth every other year. I know we're going to have a warranty contract. Is there also a way that we can get preventative maintenance so we have the right person doing the preventative maintenance on the unit and not somebody that isn't familiar with the unit? I'm just putting it out there. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I just also want the record to reflect that this was done through state contract.
But for the layman, state contract is basically
Essentially means the state
pre-negotiated.
went out to bid for all the municipalities that want to be a member of the cooperative, and through Sean Canning, our QPA, our qualified purchasing agent, council has appropriately passed a resolution for us to participate.
But we went out and got a second quote just to verify, that we were getting, even though it wasn't bid, we used state contract, but we wanted to verify the state contractor's price by getting a second quote too.
And prior to this, did go out and get direct install funding.
Yes.
I think 80%.
80%.
Yeah, which was basically $1 million.
And that's why it's kind of separated into two
Right.
projects.
Thank you. Mr. Roush?
Jules Roush, 1010 New York Avenue, number 31511, 2024. There's a $500,000 financial assistance. Is that money that we get and hold, or is it money that's available to us if and when we do the work?
It's sitting over there in that Franklin Street School right now. We've already spent it.
We've already spent it.
This is a requirement, this is one of the grant requirements for us to file this conservation easement.
Okay, so,
Till we don't get the grant money to reimburse the county for that 500,000 if we don't file this easement.
so it's our, it's,
It's on our interest to,
basically a wash.
well, that's what happens when most grants are a reimbursement grant. We spend the money, but we have to fulfill certain obligations. This is one of the last obligations we have to fill to close out the project. As soon as we file this down to the county clerk's office, we'll be able to send the final closeout documents to the New Jersey Historic Trust, and then they'll send us a check.
But it talks about a 20-year obligation.
Yes. Most of that's monitoring. We have to send in, annual or biannual picture
Just out of-
reports
out
to
of
make sure
curiosity,
that,
how much of that is the city obligated for, and how much is the county obligated for?
well, it's our grant, so we're obligated.
Okay.
But it's really just monitoring to show that we're not changing the historic character of the structure.
Using the property the way it's going to be used anyway.
Yeah.
Yes.
316, there's a shared service division of
Yes.
of an electric bill or an electric
Yep.
contract. Would you,
So while Beach Avenue was under construction, we asked the county to install several underground conduits so that we could run electric wires underneath Beach Avenue in the future so that we could remove some of the electric services.
but with the conduits already there?
So the conduit's already there. Because obviously, if the road's getting paved, let's put some conduit in
Yeah.
the ground so that we don't have to open the road up.
Get rid of the wires.
And we can get rid of the overhead wires.
There were, I don't have them here in front. That's all, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on the resolutions this evening? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. We have the consent agenda reports.
Yes,
City Clerk.
council, anything to remove from the consent agenda this evening?
Anything, council? No? Okay.
All right, in that case, do we have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Roll call?
Councilmember Yeager?
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer?
Yes.
Councilmember McDade?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Baldwin?
Yes.
Mayor Mullick?
Yes.
Wonderful.
Okay. New business?
New business.
City solicitor, any new business?
Nothing tonight, Mayor, thank you.
City manager, any new business?
No, I think I covered everything tonight. Thank you.
City clerk?
Just a reminder that city offices are closed the 28th and 29th for Thanksgiving, so Thanksgiving Day and the day after.
Thank
Happy
you.
holidays.
Thank you. Anything, Deputy? Good, okay. Council members, Deputy Mayor?
I have nothing tonight, thank you.
Okay. Council member McDade? Sorry. Couldn't remember Meyer or McDade.
Nothing, Mayor
Okay,
Mullick.
thank you.
We're so.
Councilmember Meyer. Anything, Mr. Meyer? Councilmember Yeager?
Nothing.
All right, I'll join in, nothing. I'll open it up to the public. Anyone wishing to speak, please come to the microphone, state your name and address.
Stacy Sheehan, 928 Columbia Avenue. One announcement that I would like the clerk to make is about the budget meetings, or maybe it's manager. I guess it's going to be in December?
No, I think we have some dates in November.
It was
I think.
advertised for Friday, the 22nd, and Monday, the 25th, I believe, beginning at 9 a.m.
Of November?
Yes.
November 22nd and
And the Monday, the 25th. if I have those
25th.
dates
Okay.
correct.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
I see the Washington Street got paved. I just have one concern with Washington Street, and I'm concerned with low-speed vehicles when they hit this kind of ditch, and that's right almost in front of Union Street, right by Sotheby's. There's a real big drainage ditch, and it's really almost, I think would be a dangerous for low-speed vehicles coming along, not realizing it's there. Almost people could be popped out. It's such a big dip to it. And
Reverse speed hump. No, we'll look at it, but it's a reverse speed hump.
But I just want to because it seems like it's a safety concern with the fact that it's so low there. It almost, luckily our speed limit's only 20 miles an hour, because anything more, we'd all be having damage done to our cars because it's really bad in that area. So that's right in front of Sotheby's. There's actually two, and there's a couple even manholes that are pretty deep that I think that if, it's not as dangerous as that one, but they're still not flush with the street and could be considered a danger. Thank you.
Thank you. I went a little quickly because I wanted to join in with everyone saying nothing, but I would be remiss not to say, in the resolutions this evening was the nature trails, which I just want to thank all of City Council, the County Open Space Board for approving that. It's, for those who don't know, it's going to be 2 miles of trails that go out into the wetlands. And obviously, you say the word wetlands, that means there's going to be a lot of DEP approvals that need to go through. So this was a accumulation of years of work between Vince Orlando, our engineer, through the bidding process. The bidding process, we had, I think it was 8 different contractors that bid on that contract, all very aggressive. And again, the bid came in under the numbers, which is, you feel like you could say less and less these days. So that was really great. And also on this is Lafayette Street Park green area improvements, which we could skip over, but, and I know Shane knows, this is over a decade's worth of work getting to this point. All kinds of DEP discussion and permitting. So I think, I just want to thank, really, I want to thank you, Shane, too, for years of work on Lafayette Street Park. And I know there's going to be some small changes that we make to make it as perfect as we possibly can. But I just think as the years go by, you forget how much time and effort was put into this. So it's pretty cool to see it get to the bidding process, get good bids come in, and then tonight award that contract, which really is a long time coming. But I appreciate people's patience and, you know, kids who have grown up waiting for this park to get completed, unfortunately. So to see the upgrades to the playground and now to the park itself, I think really is a wonderful thing. I apologize, Mr. Roush, but I did want to thank all the council, administration were working hard on that, the engineers and the county for stepping up to the plate for that. Sorry about that. Thank you.
Jules Roush, 1010 New York. I'd like to just continue what you just said. You know, the trails that exist in the South Meadows,
Yeah.
I spent some years in Cape May Point. I can't tell you how beautiful it was and is. In fact, I was down there last week. And I can imagine how attractive it will be going forward through the area behind the elementary school. So I think it will be a great addition to the city. And I think we'll be amazed how many people use it.
Yeah.
In line with that, a couple of things that came up at our TPA board meeting. The board was very appreciative of Councilman McDade's support of the, what I call an executive summary of the projects going forward. We think that's a great part of transparency. There's also a concern that we'd like to see, starting in 2025, a significant effort towards the uniform enforcement of our ordinances. I know no one likes to provide citations and penalties, but there are some times when they're needed and to change some of the habits that exist in the city. And the other one was, as we approach the holiday season, it would really be nice for everyone in the city, including the residents and the employees, to have a smile on their face and welcome the people that are coming to our town. We could be a little more friendly, I believe, and I throw that out as a suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roush. Anyone else want to spread the Christmas spirit? Seeing none, we can close public comment. Motion to adjourn? Thank you all, everyone. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
I'm going to stand at the little bridge and greet everyone.
I nominate you for that.
Great, thank you. Hey, Mike, thank you for your comments.
What's that?
Thanks for your comments about the ordinance.
Oh, sure.
Knowing how much it's going to cost.
Yeah, it's,
My stomach, I was wondering if
What's that?
hear my stomach growl.
I know, I'm like, that's why I was like sitting here, I'm like, all right, I'm getting it, and I had no food headache.
Yeah.
Okay. Twice a week for your recycling bill. What kind of recycling do you have? That's it.
yeah, all the stuff that comes in, everything that you buy,